Thank you everyone for joining, as I mentioned. Looking forward to this fantastic presentation that we have coming from Yehen. So as shown in the video, I am Karima Kiat and the marketing manager for Graduate Mentor, and I'm excited for all of us to learn on how to expand our analytical skills today. So just whilst Yehen is speaking, please make sure to keep yourself on mute, but you can type any questions that you have in the chat for us to cover throughout the presentation, and after as well, we can do a little Q&A. So this webinar is being recorded too. So you have the chance to come back to this if you need to in the future. So on that note, Yehen, would you like to take over?
Thank you, Karina. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining, and I'm delighted to be here. My name is Yehen Jayasena. I am a chartered accountant by background, and I currently work at KPMG as a senior manager within their finance transformation practice. Data analytics is very close to my heart. It's something I've been involved in for many years. And the purpose of this presentation is to demystify data analytics a little bit and actually take you through some of the key really topical issues around data analytics and how that can really be of benefit as you are applying for various jobs, getting ready for interviews, getting your LinkedIn profiles updated, etc. So I'm just going to, I'm proposing to present for about half an hour, 35 minutes, and then kind of open up the floor for questions, etc. So let me, would you let me share my screen?
Oh, sure, yes. Let me just...
Thank you. I've got the presentation ready. Excellent. Now, hopefully people can see this. Tell me if this is coming through okay.
I can see that, yes.
Fantastic, good. Right. So the purpose of the presentation is to go through why data analytical skills are growing in importance, but also demonstrate actually how actually it can be quite easy for you to convey and show off some of your analytical skills that you may already have. So let's dive straight into this by covering what do we mean by data analytics, because often when people think about that, they think about data scientists and they think about very, very complex maths. But one of the things I want to do is really sort of break down some of those barriers, and actually I'm sure many of you, whatever course that you've done or whatever career that you want to go into, actually will have a lot of data analytical skills already, and they involve problem solving, looking at data, looking at the quality of the data, looking at data and potentially recognizing patterns of what drives changes in those data. You may have actually used some statistical techniques. You know, we don't need data scientists will be using some very complex algorithms, but some simple statistics around percentage changes are actually qualify as data analytics and these are things and these simple statistics can convey information and insights. You may have also used visual representation of data, such as graphs, such as pie charts, such as those bubble diagrams, etc. Again, that's a form of data analytical skills that you may be able to call upon and highlight in your CVs, etc. You may also have used some standard tools. Of course, there are some very technical tools that data scientists use, but actually a lot of us will have also already encountered. We may be in our course, maybe doing some practical work as part of the course or previous study, or even sort of work experience, working on Excel, So, you know, how have you used the Excel to analyze data? And the other thing is that, you know, it's data analytics is not just for the sake of it, but it's ultimately is to tell a story. It's to tell a story with numbers. So, and then that's one of the most important things about why we do data analytics, is to actually understand what the numbers are actually telling us. So these are some of the skills. When we talk about data analytics, it's actually far more widespread, and you may well already have a lot of these skills, and that's why it's really one of the key messages I want to convey in this presentation, is that it's really important to think deeply about your own background, your own experience, and call these data analytical skills out in your, whether it be in your LinkedIn profile, the application, or your CV, or your interview prep. The blue band at the bottom is something we're going to be repeating throughout this presentation, because one of the things one of the key messages is there's a real opportunity to call out these data analytical skills much more, and it will be noticed by employers. But why is that? So let's get into the detail of why data analytics is becoming more important. Here's a picture of some rowers, and as you can see, they're in the wide open sea. When you're in a rowing team, you kind of, by practicing as a rowing team, you get you get to understand how your other team members work, and you get into a rhythm. Perhaps there's a cox who's actually calling out a rhythm. And also, you know, through practice, you understand the direction of travel, what your focus is. And if, as a team, if there is a hazard that comes across, so for example, another boat, you can, as a team, you can quickly work to navigate around that. I'm using the boat as an analogy for a business, right? See, a business is far larger than a rowing team, right? So if you take each of these individual rows as different parts of the business, maybe they be different teams. In a larger corporate, you may have hundreds of teams. You'll have thousands of employees, hundreds of teams, and many different parts of the business. So can you imagine a scenario where each part of the team actually doesn't know what the other is doing? And if that's the case, what you'll have is the whole set of rowers rowing, but not synchronized, and not necessarily understanding what the overall focus of the company is. And this is very true in the real world. And the thing that distinguishes successful companies from those companies that struggle is that successful companies use data and data analytics to actually be the lifeblood that brings all of the different parts of the business together. So you can almost think of a business, right? And each of these rowers actually being linked by this invisible string, which is data. And what that data allows the company to do is actually stay linked up and be clear about what is the focus, how to stay aligned, how to remain agile when challenges present themselves, right? And so this is what the data is the thing that connects them all together. And data analytics is the way that data can be used to understand how performance is transpiring. Okay, so as I said, companies are using data analytics to improve focus, improve alignment, and agility. Okay, and the combination of those three things creates what's called resilience. A company that can withstand challenges. And And the way they're doing this is by leveraging data, and by leveraging data, one is using what's called data analytics, various techniques, and I'm going to talk about some of these in a minute. Right. So let's talk about some of the factors, right, which are impacting organization resilience. Excuse me. So companies these days, you will have heard in the news, are facing lots of risks, but also the flip side of that is one company's risk is another company's opportunity. And so this is where companies are seeing risks such as globalization. So what do we mean by that? It's, for example, you may have heard there is a global shortage of integrated chips. And that's delaying a lot of for example, car manufacturers are really struggling at the moment because they can't get enough chips to build their cars. But companies, but talking about data analytics, some companies like Tesla, for instance, right, have actually distinguished themselves because what they have done is they have identified ways that they can use software with other and using other chips that are more readily available in the manufacturing process to enable them to continue to manufacture whilst other companies have really struggled. So the way they've used data analytics is that they have seen the risk by looking at markets, the supply chain for the chips. They've had that focus around how do we mitigate that risk, and they as an organization have got aligned in terms of working with the software team, working with the procurement team to identify different sources of integrated chips, and they've used that connectivity that data enables them to do to move agilely to a new to actually find a solution by actually using some different chips, which plus added software updates to enable them to continue to manufacture. So this is an example of where a company use the data to actually help create that focus, that alignment, and enable them to move fast. That's just one example on globalization. If we move to the second one, is around technology changes. I'm sure a number of you may remember the old video players, right? And on our high street, we used to have Blockbusters. There used to be something globally, something like 9,000 Blockbuster stores, but in 2010, the company went bust. Why is that? Because there was a technology change. Netflix, online streaming became the big thing, and it actually overtook the need for people to go walk all the way down to their high street and hire a video, because you could, at a flick of a button, see thousands of different movies and shows, right? But this is where, you know, Blockbusters, they did not see what the data was presenting, that the viewing habits of customers was changing, right? They were not able to get internally organized in a way and aligned in a way to actually see how they could address that risk, and they ultimately were overwhelmed by the likes of Netflix, which came and stole their entire market share. So this is an example of how a company which didn't use data analytics to actually see the opportunity or the risk that was presenting to their entire survival, and therefore, you know, a company that ultimately did not have resilience. The reason I'm conveying these examples is as you look for jobs, as you look for opportunities in various teams within organizations, think about the risks and opportunities here I've listed on the left-hand side. Think about what the organization is facing, right? What globalization changes, technology changes, etc., and think about what the role that you're applying for. Okay, what do you think the employer is looking for in terms of those individuals that could help bring that focus, help them align and move quickly, agilely, using data, right? Let's just take a couple more examples here on environmental social governance, ESG. So this is a very, very important area. Now, I'm sure you've heard about the UN sustainability goals, right? And as part of this, the importance of the energy transition. We are trying to restrict, one of the Paris goals is to restrict the global increase in temperature down to 1.5 degrees pre-industrial, right? So those kind of big changes mean, one, a whole set of risks for some companies, but also opportunities. So for example, when you're thinking about the oil and gas companies, they are facing a big challenge in terms of the energy transition. How do they transition from oil, which is carbon intensive, to much more low carbon technologies, whether that be solar, whether that be wind, renewables, hydrogen? Okay, so in that, if you're applying for those kind of roles, or if you're applying for any industry which is going through those big changes, think about, right, the company, but also think about how that particular role will be using data to help the different parts of the company get aligned, have the right focus, and to move quickly when through this period of change. Another example here, particularly talking about agility, COVID-19, right? When COVID-19 restrictions, in terms of new regulations and compliance, there's a whole set of new regulations and restrictions when COVID was hitting us, right? And so the ability, we couldn't go to the shops freely. So as a result of that, some companies, again, saw the opportunity to look at new ways of operating. A number of companies didn't previously have an online presence. They quickly went online and offered their services through a whole new online presence. But in order to do that, right, think about how the data enables that to happen in terms of engaging, identifying your customers, and how you would inform them. Actually, you're not operating in your shops anymore, but you're available to the customers can access these services online, and as those organizations, how do they internally get aligned? What data could they potentially use so that the whole company helps make that transition to, in this case, in going from a high street present to an online present, but to do it really quickly. And what we saw is those companies that use data to create that focus and that alignment, and were able to move far more quicker. And actually a number of companies came out being very successful as part of as a result of being able to move quickly during the COVID-19 and take advantage of those opportunities. finally, new business models. What do we mean by this? It's about new ways of operating. So a good example of this is Uber, for instance. So traditionally, taxi companies, you'd need a whole infrastructure of a call center. You'd need to have a whole recruitment drive for a set of drivers, and you need to create, there'd be a very like a corporate business structure for that taxi company. But with Uber, it's very easy. Private individuals can become taxi drivers. So they've changed. What Uber has done is they've changed the business model for their taxi business. But again, so how does a traditional taxi business? How can a traditional taxi business react to those changes in business model? How can they use the information that they have around their existing customers to actually stay competitive and engage those customers, maybe with a lot more sort of that personal service, but you'll only get that through understanding the data. So there are many more sort of risks and opportunities, but what I'm saying is that the smart companies will be the ones that are actually using the data to actually create those opportunities and to create this resilience. And as part of this is where companies are getting that competitive advantage over others by using data analysis. And again, what I would encourage you to do as you're applying for various roles, have this awareness, right? Have this awareness about the companies you're applying for. What are they facing in terms of global challenges, technology changes? What new regulations are coming up and are potentially causing challenges for them? Are there any new business models that could actually completely transform the way they operate? Are there any sort of ESG changes on the horizon? Through that, have that awareness, but then think down to that individual role, right? What are the skills that an individual working in that role will need in terms of it to be successful, and how can data play into that piece, right? To create better insights, to help the company make better decisions. Okay. Just doing a quick time check. The second big area of change is cloud. Cloud computing. Now, I'm no expert in cloud computing, but cloud computing is making some big changes to the way organizations operate. So cloud computing is far more scalable. It helps eliminate global barriers. What I mean by that is that it's easier to expand into different countries because all of your computing remains on the cloud, and you can basically copy what your cloud computing provision for one country, one region into another very, very quickly. It is actually more secure. I know we hear a lot of challenges around security. What we're seeing at the moment is cloud computing being far more secure than the local companies having local computer systems, ones in their office. And also benefits in terms of disaster recovery. So having disaster recovery can be very expensive. I don't want to go into detail here, but this is kind of for your context. The way companies are working is being revolutionized by cloud computing, but one of the key aspects of this change is that cloud computing is improving. It really improves data analytics and insights. Okay, and let's dive into that a little bit more, because cloud computing is opening many more doors into data, into what's possible on the data analytics side. So of course, with a cloud computer, you got a lot more processing power and you got a lot more storage. If you need more storage, you can go buy some on the cloud, and it's much cheaper than going to have to buy another server to put in the office. So that's why those are the two benefits. But the biggest benefits, which is helping to really increase the scale in which cloud computing is enabling data analytics, is the fact that in the cloud, right, all your different types of data are much more closer integrated. So what I mean by that is you could have financial data. So in terms of what are your sales, what are your costs, what's your capital expenditure, what's on your balance sheet, what's in your cash flow. That's kind of financial data. But you could have a whole set of operational data. Is, how many units have you sold, what products have you sold, how efficiently is your plant working, how many times has your factory tripped up in terms of an operational outage, how many employees do you have, what are they working on. All these kind of functional data, all of that can be, because it's all in the cloud, can be connected together. And by connecting functional data together, it becomes a lot more powerful, because you can start to connect the dots, you can use the data in a much more holistic manner to see the performance of a company. So the potential to do data analytics is far greater with cloud computing. Also, with cloud computing, you've got a lot more processing power. So tools like artificial intelligence algorithms and machine learning algorithms can be deployed, and so these are ones that your normal sort of laptop would really struggle to do previously. But now with the power of AI in the cloud, it can churn through vast amounts of data far quickly to create these forecasts and insights. Okay, and lastly, what cloud computing does, it allows visualization tools. You may have heard of things like Power BI and Tableau. These are super tools, because what they do is they link up with the data, the underlying data tables, and they helps individuals very quickly create these beautiful visuals, and to help convey a story of what the data is showing us. It could be you could have a map of the UK, and with different pie charts showing the sales in different zones and so on. But it can be, and various graphs which link the different data together. So these are very powerful tools. All of these are enabled by the cloud computing and the extra processing power and the storage that comes with it. And as a result of that, you can get better, you can drive better insights, and therefore better decisions for the companies. So what does this mean to you, right? In terms of your applications, etc., to various companies. One is that being aware of these things is really important when you're speaking in an interview setting. Understanding this transition, one way of demonstrating that is you can do various. There may be some courses that you can do to get upskilled in some of these tools as well. So have this awareness. Think about how you can draw out. Think about the linkage of any role that you're applying for, right, and how that might link to cloud computing and the analytical additional analytical capability that it provides. Yeah. So how would you go about demonstrating your data analytical skills? For instance, here in LinkedIn, here there are many ways. I mean, here are a few examples. I mean, of course, the obvious ones is, you know, highlight your key experiences and any projects you've done, any sort of what are the achievements. But one thing I would say is always try and try and give some substance to that by calling out what's the benefits actually that have materialized. You know, has it for instance helped to reduce costs? So, you know, you may have has it helped to you know, increase revenue? So in projects that you've done, so maybe you've done work experience, or you may have done some university projects. Think about what the benefits the analysis that you did actually generated, and put a dollar or a pound or a percentage, whenever possible, quantify, and it actually gives a lot more substance to what to that particular point. A great thing about LinkedIn, as I'm sure you know, is the skills piece, and it's really important, because as companies, if you're applying for particular jobs, the skills section is actually used to match you up with various roles, and there are think about you know, what some of those skills that are available to select. You might remember right at the beginning of the presentation, the point that I was making is, looking at your experience, you might actually have a lot more data analytical skills than you might think. So, you know, data visualization really just means that you have actually, you know, used tools to help convert data into visual representations, which helps decision making. So think of examples where that has happened, right? Another great way is on LinkedIn has these communities and various groups. So think about joining some of those, following them. Think about you know, even commenting on and adding, you know, being part of that. And it's all, I know I've been part of a number of groups, and I've learned a huge amount from the various posts that they regularly put out. And of course, you could generate some of your own articles or posts as well, which will be sort of an added bonus and evidence of your skills. And of course, there's some great learning out there in LinkedIn, but also other online courses, etc. Udemy, very inexpensive. And kind of drawing to a close here. In your CV, when we're thinking about data analytics, think about some of the key words that would be really that potential employers might be looking for. You know, analysis, data visualization. The data visualization means visuals within reports, right? Data interpretation. You know, using that, what that means is you're basically looking at different types of data and you're drawing conclusions from that. Regression analysis, for instance, you know, what all that means is that you're actually linking different data together and trying to find that linkage between the two. What are the correlators, etc. Predictive models is where you know, maybe you've used, it could have been something really simple, you know, in Excel, but you've created a model that helps to create a forecast, and this may be something that predict a particular outcome. This may be something you've done in your course, etc. And data mining, for instance, that is simply about, you know, collecting data. It's about when you collect data, often it's it's not in the best state. So there's a process of cleaning that data and then transforming. And transforming means making the data nice and neat so that it can be aggregated and consolidated. And classified is where, you know, data comes in different ways. So classifying means that you can organize it into different groups, etc. It makes it much more meaningful. So, you know, there are a number of ways you can actually draw out some of the analytical skills you already have in your CV to make it that much more stronger. So that's it. So to conclude, what I would say is that the world for corporate is changing. It is becoming far more numbers and data focused. I should say data focused. And what's enabling that is things like cloud computing, where all the data is coming together, is far more powerful. But also what's driving the need is that actually the world is becoming a lot more sort of unpredictable. There are a lot more risks, global risks. There's a lot of sort of technology change, and so on. So which is actually driving the needs of organizations to look at how can they leverage data to become a lot more focused, a lot more aligned, and a lot more agile, which will help them become more resilient. And as corporates are doing that, when there are jobs that are posted, think about how those individual jobs and the teams they're in actually play into that. So I'm just going to pause there now. And stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Yehen. That was brilliant. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with all of us today. It's really been a great insight on how to expand and improve our analytical skills. And I actually really like the point about quantifying the benefits of data as well. The data that you've analyzed, like increased revenue and reduced costs, rather than just saying, you've done it, it's why you've done it and what have you improved. So yeah, it's a really great addition, great tips. And yeah, I think, well, you've covered a lot of bases there. So I can see actually just a question in the chat now. If anyone has any other questions, we'll take like 5-10 minutes or so to answer as many as we can. So we have Gurjivan. Do you recommend any newsletters on LinkedIn that focus on data analytics?
Actually, there are so many, and I wouldn't go to necessarily recommend a single one. I think what's important is thinking about your own interest and thinking about the roles that you are interested in, the industry that you are interested in, and doing and then looking at the various groups. And because there's such a variety, it'd be impossible to I don't think it'd be appropriate to recommend one single one, because I think it depends so much on your own individual sort of needs and also focus. So, you know, on my recommendation is look at the industries that and the companies that you're interested in. Look at potentially look at individuals within those companies that are following various groups, etc. And then you can also if there's particular certain groups focus on certain industries as well. So I would be far more discerning rather than just pick. It's very easy to pick a group, but what you want to do is make sure that group is actually something really meaningful for you and will help you, will add to your I suppose your knowledge set.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Lovely. If anyone else has any other questions, just before we head off? Oh,
I do have a question, but I haven't written it in the chat only because I think it's a bit long.
That's fine, go for it.
So I'm actually writing my dissertation on AI-based ESG investments. And I'm just wondering, with how AI is now developing so rapidly, where we've always used AI, or businesses have always used AI, but now it's developing much more rapidly with deep learning and new language processing as well. So where would that leave data analysts when it comes to their role? Because with new language processing, it's basically like AI can process the data, analyze it, reason, and communicate it now as well. So where do you think that would leave people in the data analysis industry?
Oh, what a super question. I actually think we're entering a golden age of data. I actually think the demand is going to increase. You're quite right with the new AI capability. It is the growth has been phenomenal, but we still have the challenge that what the AI algorithms are outputting, right? It needs to actually, I still think it needs a human and an analyst to actually look at that and what that actually means, because it's it's still very, in many cases, and I've experienced in actually using AI to generate financial forecasts. It's still very easy for the AI model to get confused and distracted by various noise in the data, and this is where I think the human element will always be needed to provide that oversight and that continuing improvement in the models to be able to identify things like those exceptions and to actually start to help build the trust in those tools. And we've seen a step change. I agree, there's been a step change in terms of the capability of AI, but I still think there's quite a long way to go in particularly around things like forecasting, etc., where the tool can get very sort of confused.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question? So I think I actually think there's an increase role for data analysts to be that custodian, that the reviewer, play the role of helping to improve those AI algorithms even further. So I actually think there's a growth there rather than a threat.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your response.
Thank you, Yehen. And it looks like we have another question from Mohammed in the chat. Just a follow-up on Ziln's question. I have a degree in accounting and finance and finishing off my ACCA. I am also worried about AI practically doing our jobs. What skills do you recommend I develop so I can add value in combination with AI?
Oh, thanks, Mohammed, for that question. Congratulations on finishing your ACCA, big achievement. So yes, I can well understand the anxiety around is AI going to take my jobs. I actually think there's a wonderful opportunity for us all with AI is to actually ride the wave rather than be overwhelmed by it. And what I mean by that is that absolutely think about the new skills that are needed, the new tools that are being used. So, for example, it could be so it looks like you're in finance, you're looking for finance type of roles. There's a whole set of skill sets that finance analysts are actually adopting, which are data analytical skills. So this is their skills in terms of delving into databases, being able to actually look at different types of data, not just financial data, but those operational, non-financial data, bring that data together, so that combining financial, non-financial actually creates a lot of potential for a lot of new insights. And so to have those skills of data ingestion, working with tools such as Jupyter Notebooks, being able to perhaps potentially using some Python coding to go into databases, etc. These are examples of finance professionals actually riding the wave high, and making themselves super marketable for companies that are looking for those finance professionals that are really sort of data savvy, really having knowledge around some of these new visualization tools, the Power BIs, amazing capability that they're continuing to build there in terms of low code. So this is where you don't necessarily need to go into the depths of Python, but you can really simple, much more easier for non computing people to be able to do quite powerful things with data and analyzing them. Mohammed, does that answer your question?
So it looks like he's added, I agree, we should embrace the change for the better. Thank you for your response and your time. It's much appreciated. Just a final question from him as well. It is, when presenting to senior stakeholders in your field, how do you respectfully challenge them and present to them conflicting views?
So what I would say is that this is where actually the new analytical tools can be super powerful, because previously it's very costly in terms of time and effort to do analysis. Now it's very much more easy because the data is far more at one's fingertips. So what that enables us to do is bring different types of data together to actually, when you're thinking about your senior stakeholders and potentially, what their position is with respect to performance, right? There may be different views of what's driving that performance, right? And what you can do is actually bring the data together using these new visualization tools in a very, very powerful way that actually helps them actually see for themselves, right? And this is where I think we can. I think it is really transformation. There's a new drive where actually it used to be financial analysts that used to put an Excel report together, put it on a PowerPoint slide and email it to the executives, and here it is. But now executives are actually getting access to a lot of data. It's called the democratization of data through these dashboards, and they're able to actually answer a lot of some of the basic questions, which were ones that the analysts would be previously spent too much time doing, but very low value. But what's now happening is, because the executives are often having access to be able to answer the simple ones, where the analysts are now coming, the questions the analysts are now getting are far more sort of complex in nature, right? And this is a good thing, because this really does enable the analysts to actually showcase their skills and abilities to actually dive deep into a particular business problem and see how the data can be brought together to help build that story, so that the executives can really understand what is happening and therefore decide what's the sort of the course of action.
Thank you, Yehen, again. So yes, it looks like all of Mohammed's questions have been answered. So that's great. Thank you so much for that. If anyone else has any other questions before we head off, otherwise, I think you've answered them all for us. Thank you for everyone attending as well. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.